Hey guys, thanks for checking out my video, Retrospective Part 1. I'll be discussing in each video member history, band stories, some of the processes that were used to create the albums, vinyl pressings, and most especially, I'll be chatting about each album track by track. So without further ado, let's Ratt N Roll. So before we can even talk about the 1983 Ratt EP, we gotta go back even further and talk about Mickey Ratt. Stephen Pearcy started Mickey Ratt in San Diego in 1977, and he took the name from an adult comic book that was a parody of like Mickey Mouse. Eventually, Stephen moved to LA and continued to play in the band Mickey Ratt. So by 1981, Stephen Pearcy is the only original member in Mickey Ratt, and he decides to hold some auditions to get some new members in the band. One of these people that show up to this audition is none other than Jakey Lee. And this was before he became a legendary guitar player and played around the world. This was a local guy from San Diego that everybody knew was really good. And he came, he tried out, and actually got in the band Mickey Ratt. Now another person that showed up, but didn't show up for auditions or anything like that, was Robin Crosby. Robin Crosby was a friend of Stephen's before because he was in another band called Phenomenon, and he would play shows with Mickey Ratt, so they hit it off. They were pretty good buddies and stuff like that. So he just came to check out how he was doing and see what Mickey Ratt was up to. So when Robin showed up and Stephen said, hey man, how's Phenomenon going? He says, oh, well, we broke up, but I have this new band called Meta, and we're going to be hot, man. He was really banking on this. That band also just broke up pretty quickly after it started. So Stephen, being friends with Robin and knowing Robin could jam, said, hey, why don't you come just jam with us sometime, see how we click together. So eventually Stephen decides, I'm going to drop Mickey. I'm going to just name it M Ratt. And one of the owners of one of these clubs says, what's going on here? What's your name? Is your name Mickey Ratt? Is it M Ratt? Make up your mind. So he decidedly just says, okay, I'm just going to drop the whole M completely, and we're just going to be called Ratt now. So at this point, it's 1982. The band is just called Ratt. And there's a fallout with Jakey Lee and Stephen Pearcy. So Jake leaves the band. Eventually, he ends up in Ozzy Osbourne. Now, the other members of the band, minus Robin, also leave and go and do their own thing at the same time. So it's kind of like a domino effect here. And this is where Stephen almost actually just said, I'm not going to play anymore. This is hopeless. We're never going to make it. And Robin pushed him. He said, no, let's do this. Let's start taking people from other bands. Everyone keeps leaving our band. Why don't we steal people from other people's bands? Now, also at this time, they had all these shows already booked, and they didn't really have anybody to play with them. And so they kind of had just like a skeleton crew of people that they just kind of had in the band at the time. They were all like temporary, and they had some show they had to play. Now, one of these other bands that plays this show has this really good guitar player, and his name is Warren DeMartini. According to Robin, Ratt was in attack mode, so they're stealing people. They're all determined to take people from any place they can if they feel that they are going to be a good fit for their band. So they approach Warren and they say, hey man, we got our band going on, we're in LA, you really should maybe consider coming hanging out with us, man, and play with us or something like that. I think Warren might have been about 18 or 19 at the time. Now, he just graduated high school, but he didn't have 3 high school credits because he failed phys ed. He kept going during phys ed to go surfing, and he kept showing up late, and you can only have like 5 tardies in his school for any class, so he did fail phys ed, and they said you make him up in college. So he went to college, and he said, maybe when I'm done with this semester, I can come hang out with you guys. We can see what we can do. I don't know. And Steven says, no way, man. We want you to come up tonight. So from what I understand, Stephen Percy has a real charisma about him and manages to somehow convince Warren, okay, I'm going to move up to LA for a little bit and hang out with these guys and jam. So he had to pack his bags and everything that night and went to LA and never moved back. So now Warren's in LA and he's got to learn these songs. He eventually actually becomes roommates with Jakey Lee, and Jakey Lee teaches him these songs, and the first song that Warren ever learned was Back for More. Now, I don't know how that whole situation worked out, where maybe Jake was still kind of friendly with the band and said, I'll do you guys a solid, and I'll teach this new guy some stuff. But he did teach him the songs, and he learned them obviously quite well. At this point, the guys want to hold auditions for a drummer, and they have multiple drummers come in and play and try out. But eventually in walks in Bobby Blotzer. Now, Blotzer plays, and Steven says, this is our guy, we gotta have him. He plays a really strong, heavy drum, and he really liked it. So they try to get him to be in the band. They say, what do you think, man? And he's a little hesitant at first. He says, I don't know, there's this other really killer band I might want to be in. Steven makes the point, but yeah, we actually have gigs, we have dates set, we have a fan following, so why don't you think about it? Blatz, it takes a couple weeks, he decides, yeah, I'm going to join you guys. Blotzer also says, I see you guys are looking for a bass player. Now, I know somebody that's really good. He's in a band of one of my best friends, Don Dokken. So one night, Robin and Steven go to a club, and they go to see Dokken play, and they see Juan Crucier, I'm sorry if I screwed that up, Juan, playing live on bass for Dokken. And they decide, let's get this guy. Now, I don't know all the details about what Juan was doing with Dokken and how his contracts were working, but I have watched newer interviews and stuff, and he said he was kind of more in like a kind of place where he could just do what he wanted. If he wanted to leave, they wouldn't have hard feelings against him or anything like that. Juan really just wanted to play in a band that was going to be making money, playing gigs all the time. He had to support his family. So after the gig, Robin and Steven approach Juan, and they at least convince him to try out for Ratt. Now that the guys are together, the band is kind of solidified, they start playing together. They have a practice space that Bobby Blotzer had a hookup for, so they would go and practice there. They had plenty of gigs that they were churning out, and they were starting to get pretty popular in the area. They all moved into a place called Ratt Mansion West. That's what they named it. It was a one-bedroom apartment on the west side of LA. It was kind of a dump, I guess. So while they were living there, they would practice and come up with ideas for what they should do with the band. And one of the ideas was, let's do something different, fashion-wise, than what everyone else is doing. You had these bands on the LA Strip that were all kind of wearing like leather. Like Motley Crue had leather and the pentagrams and stuff like that. And Ratt said they wanted to go for something a little bit different, something that appealed more to the female crowd as well. So they had some female friends that worked at some kind of bigger named fashion designer type stores, and they would kind of like steal these clothes or lend them the clothes off the racks. This is where Steven and Robin came up with the idea Concrete Pirates. They had like frilly shirts, and you had all the hanging bandanas and just a lot of like fringe. So I know you see a lot of these hair bands and people say glam metal's stupid and look at how they dress and all that, but in the beginning, really, it was just Ratt. Ratt came up with this look. They wore the spandex pants, with the fringy clothes, and a lot of these clothes also were made by female fans. So it wasn't like Ratt was just going to the store. They did have people making them a lot of fashion during this time. obviously, eventually, it became a huge trend, and you couldn't tell one glam band from another, and Ratt kind of got put into the same group with them, which I really can't even grasp, because musically they are just 10 times above any of those other bands. So one night after Ratt gets done playing the whiskey, Steven's approached by a little curly-haired guy with glasses, and he's telling him, "Oh, you guys are terrific. Do you guys have a manager?" And Steven says, "No, I don't have a manager right now." And he says, "I'm Marshall Burrell. You probably know my uncle. It's Milton Burrell, Mr. Television. You know him?" And apparently this guy has been with some pretty big name people like Creedence Clearwater Revival, Ike and Tina Turner, Canned Heat, stuff like that. Now, Marshall asks, "Hey, so do you guys have a record deal?" And Steven pointedly says, "No, we don't. But we have recorded in the past." They previously recorded a song called "Tell the World" with another bass player and a different drummer for the Metal Massacre Volume 1, which also had Metallica, Black and Blue, Bitch, a couple other different bands that were pretty big at the time, and obviously Metallica became a worldwide powerhouse for metal, probably the biggest metal band of all time at this point. Also, when Steven moved to LA back in 1980, he did a two-sided single recorded at Lucky Dog Studios in Venice. And he would throw them out to the crowd. They only pressed about 100 of them, and right now they are really rare. I think I saw one going for like over $300, and most of them don't even come with the little handmade slipcase that they were originally placed in. Steven was a little reluctant to just automatically say, "Yeah, sure, let's have you be our manager." Obviously, he had to talk to the guys about it and stuff. So with him being reluctant, Marshall was kind of like, "Well, fine, do what you want, but I do also have to tell you, I did get Van Halen their start." Marshall gave Steven his card and said, "Give me a call, I'm always around." Now, after discussing this with the guys, everybody seemed like they were on board for this except Warren. Warren felt like, "I'm not going to sign my life away unless I see the terms, because people are going to take my money." And this actually ended up being kind of a problem later on in further records, which we'll get into. The guys eventually went and met with Burrell, and he explained, "Hey, guys, I'm starting a label, Time Coast Records. If you want, when the time comes, I'll help finance an EP for you guys." So he promised he would run their fan club, he'd help them book gigs, he'd do all the manager type stuff. And Warren still was saying, I don't know. So there was a hump they really had to get over here with Warren. Warren insisted that they get a lawyer. Bobby and Juan were on board to sign the contracts. Now, from what they said, that Time Coast would make most of the profits off this record if it sold good. But, the guys just wanted to get something recorded that was legitimate and put it out there. So they got a lawyer, and they kind of fiddled with some of the terms, and I guess Warren was happy enough with it that he did eventually record this EP with the guys. Now, Ratt had a whole bunch of new material since they became the 5-piece unit that we know them as today. Now, with that, let's dig right into this Ratt 1983 self-titled EP. Alright, now that we're done with part 1 of the Rattrospective, let's jump right into talking about the EP. Sorry, the glare. Also, forewarning you, there are other maniacs in this house besides me, so they might jump into the shot. So this was put out in 1983, and this was pressed 3 different times, and there's 3 different pressings for this. Now, I have the second pressing, and you can tell what pressing it is just by looking at the back picture. Now, this is the second pressing with the updated back. The original back had their first look, and they did this to kind of cash in on the band after they hit it big with Out of the Cellar. So this is actually a repressing that came out after Out of the Cellar. And there's also a third pressing, which is a Japanese pressing, and that contains You're in Trouble which is not on any other pressings. So it's a 6-song EP or a 7-song EP with the Japanese pressing. See if you can see those names there. Not really. So I'll read them off for you. You have Sweet Cheater, You Think You're Tough, You Got It. And then side B, Tell the World, Back for More, and then Walking the Dog. There's no insert. Just a regular label, nothing real fancy. Time Coast. Really sorry about all these glares. So, let's dive into the music itself. Sweet Cheater just opens up and just explodes right away. It's just this really awesome song that just has tons of energy. It's really fast. And Robin on this album, this is what I like to call the Robin album. He is the prevalent lead guitarist on this one. This is before Warren really took over with his shredding on further albums. So it's got a little bit more of a bluesy, raw sound, whereas the later albums you can hear that they start to get a little bit cleaner and faster and stuff like that. So, Sweet Cheater, great song, love it, love that song. You Think You're Tough is track 2. Oh man, I just love this track. This is such a good song for so many reasons. There's just so much just rock happening in this song, and you can just hear that these guys are just onto something. They're gonna be big. If you were hearing this back then when it came out, you had to have thought, wow, these guys are gonna be big. There's no way they're not. And you've got Robin, just really awesome guitar solo on it. There's a really cool little tiny breakdown at one point in the song that I really, really love, that I wish they would extend. And actually when I saw them live, they played it a lot longer. They played it for maybe like 30 seconds as opposed to like the 10 seconds that they do on this vinyl. So I just love the song. It's got a great chorus. It's so catchy. I mean, eventually they had to make a video for it after Out of the Cellar came out because this thing was flying off the shelves, and they figured, why not? Let's do it. You Got It. Just another really good song. It's just punchy. It's rock. It's everything you want a Ratt song to be like. I just like side A is just, to me, it's as perfect as it gets for a debut EP. So then we get to side B, Tell the World. Now this isn't the first Tell the World. This is like a, you know, they redid it with the 5 new members, because when they did do this song, it was for Metal Massacre, and they didn't have Bobby, and they didn't have Juan. So I kind of like the Metal Massacre one just a little bit more. It has a bit of a raw sound that I really like, and I don't know, I just think that they should have just stuck with that one. They should have just kept it on, the album. But that's alright, it's still pretty good. I really like it a lot. Back for More. Now, this has a little bit of a different sound than the one you're probably used to with Out of the Cellar. Out of the Cellar doesn't have this like really pronounced bass, which this edition does. It has a just kind of, you can hear it. It's really funky. It's a lot of slap, and some people don't really care for it very much, as opposed to the one that ends up on the next album. I like it. I don't think I like it as much as the next version of it, which is Out of the Cellar. And then they end it with Walking the Dog, which is a pretty good song. It's a cover, and Aerosmith has done it, and Rolling Stones. It kind of has that bluesy rock sound. A lot of this album does have a bluesy rock sound too, because Robin was a little bit more into that sound, and he was, at the time, he was a little bit more of the leader than Warren eventually became. on the guitar. So overall, I would say that this is a great album. I wouldn't say it's perfect or anything like that, but I mean, it's 6 tracks. You really can't go wrong with that. Also, if you look real closely, there's a little rat here that's black. Now, when they got these rats from the pet shop or whatever, they rented these rats. It wasn't like they just bought these rats and threw them on Tawny's legs. They thought they only had like 5 rats and they were all white, but then they realized when they took the picture and looked at it, oh, there's a little 6th black rat in there. So that's a nice little tidbit. But overall, I would give this album probably an 8 out of 10. Only because, you know, they're not there yet, but let's just say they're on the cellar floor and they're ready to come out of the cellar. Well, that concludes our part 1 of the Rattrospective. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, hit like and subscribe, and keep your eyes peeled because part 2 is right on the horizon. Out of the cellar.